Imagine a 34-year-old software engineer named Alex. He earns a solid salary and has been investing steadily for 8 years. Last month, his portfolio finally crossed $200,000. Out of that total, he had personally contributed around $90,000. The remaining $110,000 came purely from market growth. Back in year 2, Alex had put in $20,000 that year, yet his portfolio sat at roughly $18,500. He was underwater. The S&P 500 was going through a tough period. A colleague urged him to sell everything and wait for calmer markets. Alex held firm. It proved to be the right move. Now picture someone who took the other path, call her Sarah. Same age, same income, same starting point. In March 2020, after seeing her portfolio plunge 30% in just 3 weeks, she cashed out completely. She planned to jump back in once things made sense again. She's still on the sidelines. Today her portfolio stands at about $67,000. The gap between Alex and Sarah isn't intelligence or superior stock picks. It's something simpler. Alex understood that wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows on a curve with 3 major tipping points, where the mathematics shift dramatically. The question that separates those who build serious wealth from those who don't is this: at what exact portfolio size do your investments start earning more in a year than you personally contribute? And what changes once you pass that line? I'm going to walk you through these 3 tipping points using clear math drawn from historical market data, Federal Reserve statistics, and long-term returns. By the end, you'll know exactly where you stand on the curve and what to expect at each stage. No hype, no fluff, just the real mechanics. Before we get into it, I put together a free early retirement calculator built on the same principles that institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard use. Plug in your numbers, and it will show your projected tipping point timelines. Link in the description. Email required so I can send quarterly updates when fresh Fed data comes in. Most people picture wealth as linear. Save $10K a year for 10 years and you have $100K. That mental model is understandable but completely inaccurate. Wealth grows exponentially, and that growth accelerates in distinct phases with clear tipping points. Let's use real-world benchmarks. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances shows median U.S. household income around $83,700, median net worth for those under 35 near $39,000, and a national personal savings rate of about 4%. That translates to roughly $3,000 saved annually for many households. Linear thinking suggests it would take over 30 years to reach $100K at that rate. Compounding tells a very different story. Tipping point 1. The crossover. This is the moment when the growth your portfolio generates in a single year surpasses the fresh money you add that year. It sounds modest, but it's a fundamental shift. Assume you save $10,000 per year and invest in a broad index fund with a long-term average return of about 10% annually before inflation. When does 10% of your portfolio exceed your $10,000 contribution? At $100,000. At that level, your money produces $10,000 in growth on its own. You've matched your own annual effort with pure compounding. Charlie Munger was right when he said the first $100,000 is the hardest. It's mathematics, not motivation. Starting from zero with 10K annual contributions at 10% returns, reaching that first 100K typically takes 7 to 8 years. Progress feels painfully slow. 20K, 35K, 62K. During that stretch, you'll likely experience negative market years, roughly 1 out of every 3. Many people see their balance drop and quit right then, selling at a loss and resetting the entire process. Here's the acceleration that follows. $0 to $100K approximately 7-8 years. $100K to $200K approximately 5 years. $200K to $400K approximately 4. 5 years. $400K to $800K approximately 3.5 years. Each doubling happens faster because your portfolio is now pulling its own weight. The crossover is a one-way threshold. Once you pass it, you move from pure accumulation, where everything depends on your new contributions, into acceleration, where past savings start working alongside you. The danger zone, the range between roughly $100K and $300K, is psychologically the riskiest. Losses feel big enough to hurt, but the portfolio isn't yet large enough for those losses to feel survivable. A 30% drop at $100K wipes out $30K, 3 years of contributions gone in weeks. At $300K, the same drop erases $90K. The people who succeed here usually do one thing: they stop obsessing. Automatic contributions, automatic rebalancing, and minimal checking, quarterly or even yearly. Constant monitoring leads to emotional decisions that almost always destroy returns. I've been investing for years with multiple six-figure exposure, and I log into my brokerage account only a handful of times annually. The market doesn't need an audience. The math works whether you watch or not. Tipping point 2. The replacement: this is when your portfolio's average annual growth matches or exceeds your entire salary. At median income, $84K, that happens around $840,000 with 10% returns. Your money now earns what you earn, without requiring a single day of your labor. This creates an identity shift. You start thinking about trading time for money differently. Negotiation power at work changes. Risk tolerance expands. Your relationship with time and freedom evolves. Tipping point 3. The freedom threshold: this is where your portfolio can sustainably support your lifestyle through safe withdrawal rates, often 3–4%. You've reached the point of financial independence. Each tipping point changes not just your numbers, but the questions you ask and the choices available to you. Key lessons: the first $100K is the hardest because progress feels glacial, while volatility feels immediate. Bad market years are the price of admission to the long-term average. Those who reach the first tipping point aren't necessarily the smartest or highest earners. They are simply the ones who kept going when it felt pointless. Lost decades, like 2000–2009, feel brutal in the moment, but they allow you to buy more shares cheaply. The subsequent recovery rewards that patience enormously. The worst environment for a young accumulator is actually a non-stop bull market. You end up buying fewer shares at high prices. Broad index funds solve the hard part. You own the winners automatically while the losers get diluted. You don't need to pick individual stocks. You need patience and consistency. The curve is real. The math is relentless. Where you stand on it right now determines everything that comes next. If this type of straight-talk financial breakdown is useful, drop a like and subscribe so it reaches others who are tired of flashy get-rich-quick advice. The calculator is waiting if you want to run your own numbers. The boring truth is also the most powerful one. Stay consistent, survive the volatility, and the mathematics eventually does the heavy lifting. Tipping point 2. The replacement threshold: this is where the game starts to feel genuinely different. You've already crossed the first tipping point. Your returns now exceed your new contributions. The snowball is rolling, yet you're still going to work every day trading time for money. Then one year you check the numbers and realize something unsettling. Your portfolio grew by more than your entire annual salary. Your money made more than you did, using median U.S. household income of roughly $83,700 and 10% average annual returns. This replacement point arrives around $837,000. At that size, your investments generate about $84,000 in growth in a typical year, without any extra work from you. The mental shift is huge. Before this point, your main focus is, how do I make more money? Raises, promotions, side income. After crossing it, a new question emerges. Why am I still trading my time for money when my capital can do it more efficiently? Most people don't quit their jobs immediately. But the power dynamic changes. You negotiate with more confidence because the job is no longer your only lifeline. You can take smarter risks. You become more selective with your time and energy. Your portfolio becomes a silent partner that has your back. Strong market years can accelerate this moment. For example, the S&P 500 delivered over 26% in 2023 and 25% in 2024. A $400,000 portfolio would have grown by more than $100,000 in those 2 years alone, more than many people earn in 2 full years of work. And that was still well below the full replacement threshold. This phase becomes strangely addictive. Your new contributions start to feel almost insignificant compared to what the existing balance produces. You could pause contributions entirely and still see substantial annual growth. Escalation example at $500,000 with 10% returns. Growth, your 10K contribution is only 20% of the total increase. A few years later at $700,000, growth, contribution is now tilde 14%. At $1 million, tilde $100,000 growth, contribution drops to tilde 10%. The portfolio is doing the vast majority of the work. This creates an odd psychological tension for some people, guilt that they're not earning it anymore, resentment toward their job, or anxiety that it feels too good to last. All normal reactions, but they miss the truth. This wealth was earned through earlier discipline and patience. Realistic case study. James, let's follow a complete example. James, a 29-year-old software developer in 2016, earning $75,000. He begins investing $15,000 per year with average 10% returns. 2016, year 1, portfolio approximately $16,000, feels like almost nothing. 2018, year 3, approximately $52,000. Progress still feels slow amid volatility. 2020, year 5, approximately $93,000, then drops to $68,000 in March. He keeps contributing and holds steady. 2021, year 6, crosses $100,000, tipping point 1 achieved in about 5.5 years. 2023, year 8, approximately $200,000. $1 strong year alone delivered $52,000 in growth. 2026, year 11, age 39, approximately $480,000. Annual growth now more than 3 times his new contributions. Around age 45, crosses $800,000, approaching tipping point 2. Around age 50, reaches $1.2 million, getting close to full financial independence. The biggest gains didn't come from the earliest years of grinding. They came during the middle stretch once the curve steepened. The first $100K was the hardest. The acceleration phase did most of the heavy lifting. After the first 2 tipping points, the final distance to independence becomes far more automatic, as long as you don't interfere. The core truth, these tipping points aren't about being smarter or luckier. They're reached by people who accept that market drops are the cost of accessing the long-term 10% average. Volatility isn't risk when your time horizon is long. It's the mechanism that creates better buying opportunities. The curve is predictable in its behavior even if individual years are chaotic. Stay consistent through the uncomfortable periods, keep the contributions automatic, and minimize emotional interference. The mathematics does the rest. The first $100,000 is the hardest. Crossing the crossover point changes the game forever. Reaching the replacement threshold rewires your relationship with work and time. And once you pass those 2 thresholds, the path to the third, true financial freedom, becomes much clearer. Wherever you are on the curve today, the next step is the same. Keep going. The math rewards those who simply refuse to quit. If this clear, no-nonsense breakdown helps you see your own path more clearly, drop a like and subscribe so others can find it too. And don't forget to check the free calculator in the description to map out your own tipping point timelines. The process is unglamorous, but it works if you let it. What are you doing here? This is our chance to relax. The words struck me like a sharp blow as I stood at the entrance of my own mountain cabin, looking at my sister's husband relaxing in the jacuzzi on my deck. Through the windows, I could see my sister and her 2 children helping themselves to the groceries I'd placed in my refrigerator just 3 days earlier. The aroma of grilled steaks, my premium cuts from the butcher in Denver, floated through the air. I felt my jaw clench, but I made myself smile. Sure, you guys enjoy it. I turned around, grabbed my weekend bag, and walked back to my car without saying anything else. Behind me, I heard laughter. My sister shouted something that sounded like, "Don't be so dramatic," but I kept going. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove down the mountain road with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My name is Erica, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a project manager at Northrise Apparel in Boulder, Colorado, and I'd been looking forward to this weekend for months. The past 3 weeks had been tough. Back-to-back deadlines, a product launch that nearly collapsed, and a team member who quit without warning. I needed this break. I needed the quiet of my cabin, the sound of wind through pine trees, and the calm that came from being completely alone. But apparently my sister had different ideas. The cabin had been mine for 2 years. I'd saved for it, given up things for it, worked extra hours and skipped vacations to afford the down payment. It sat on 3 acres near Breckenridge, with a view of the mountains that made every struggle worth it. When I bought it, my family had been doubtful. My mother said it was too costly. My father wondered why I needed to be alone so much. My sister, Vanessa, had laughed and said I was trying too hard to prove something. Vanessa was 32, married to a man named Craig, and they had 2 children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 5. She'd always been the favorite in our family. She got married young, had kids right away, and seemed to live the life our parents had always wanted for both of us. Meanwhile, I was the different one. Single, focused on my career, and apparently too independent for my own good. I'd bought the cabin as a safe place, a spot where I could breathe, a place where no one could tell me what I should be doing with my life or when I should settle down. I'd made it clear to my family that this was my personal space. I'd even said it directly to Vanessa after she'd asked to borrow it for a weekend last summer. I told her no. I explained that I needed one place that was just mine. She'd seemed to understand at the time. She'd said she got it. She'd even apologized for asking. But clearly that understanding had an expiration date. As I drove down the winding mountain road toward Boulder, my phone started buzzing. I glanced at the screen. Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, voicemail. Then a text appeared, "Why are you being so strange? We're family, you can share." I pulled over at a gas station and sat there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. I'd driven 3 hours to get to my cabin. I'd packed my favorite books, planned to hike the trails I loved, and imagined spending Saturday morning on my deck with coffee and silence. Instead, I'd found my sister's family using my space like it was a public park. How had they even gotten in? I had the only key. Then I remembered. Last Christmas, Vanessa had asked if she could borrow a key in case of emergencies. She said she worried about me being up there alone. She said it would give her peace of mind to know she could check on the place if something happened. I'd hesitated, but our mother had been sitting right there, nodding along, saying how thoughtful Vanessa was. So I'd given her a spare key. I'd told her it was only for emergencies. "This was not an emergency," I texted back. "You didn't ask." Her response came immediately. "I didn't think I had to. It's just a cabin. You're not even using it every weekend." I stared at those words. Just a cabin. As if 2 years of saving and sacrifice meant nothing. As if my need for personal space was unreasonable. As if my boundaries didn't matter because I wasn't using something every single moment. I didn't respond. I started the car and drove back to my apartment in Boulder, my weekend ruined and my mind racing. I couldn't shake the image of Craig in my jacuzzi, laughing at me. I couldn't forget the casual way Vanessa had dismissed my feelings, and I couldn't stop thinking about how my family always expected me to be the one who compromised, who shared, who made room for everyone else. Not this time. By the time I got home, the sun was setting. I walked into my apartment, dropped my bag on the floor, and sat down on my couch. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something colder. Something more deliberate. I pulled out my phone and started making a list. The next morning, I woke up with the same cold clarity I'd felt the night before. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and started researching. I needed to understand exactly what my options were. The cabin was legally mine. My name was on the deed, the mortgage was in my name, and I paid every bill associated with it. Vanessa had no claim to it beyond the spare key I'd foolishly given her. But I knew my family. If I simply asked for the key back, there would be drama. Vanessa would cry. My mother would call and tell me I was being selfish. My father would say I was overreacting. They'd done it before. Growing up, I'd learned that setting boundaries with my family was considered rude. When I was 16, I'd asked for a lock on my bedroom door because Vanessa kept coming in and borrowing my clothes without asking. My mother had refused, saying families didn't lock doors. When I was 22 and moved into my first apartment, my parents had been hurt that I didn't want them to have a spare key. They'd said I was shutting them out. but I wasn't shutting them out. I was protecting myself. Over the years, I'd noticed a pattern. Vanessa would ask for something, money, time, help with the kids, and I'd say yes because saying no felt impossible. Our parents would praise her for being a devoted mother and praise me for being a supportive sister. But no one ever asked what I needed. No one ever considered that I might have limits. When I bought the cabin, I'd made a promise to myself. This would be different. This would be mine. And now Vanessa had violated that. I spent Saturday morning calling a locksmith in Breckenridge. I explained that I needed the locks changed on my cabin and that I needed it done as soon as possible. The locksmith said he could do it Monday morning. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called my property manager. The cabin was part of a small community with shared amenities and a homeowners association. I asked if there were any rules about guests or unauthorized use of properties. The manager, a kind woman named Beverly, said that owners were responsible for anyone they allowed on their property. But if someone was there without permission, it was considered trespassing. Trespassing, the word felt satisfying. Beverly asked if everything was okay. I told her I'd had some unexpected visitors and wanted to make sure I understood my rights. She said if I needed help, I should call the local sheriff's office. I thanked her and made a note. By Saturday afternoon, I had a plan. I wasn't going to yell or create a scene. I wasn't going to give my family the satisfaction of seeing me upset. I was going to be calm, methodical, and completely within my rights. Sunday passed quietly. I didn't answer calls from Vanessa or my mother. I went for a run, cleaned my apartment, and watched a movie. I felt a strange sense of peace, knowing what I was about to do. Monday morning, I drove back up to the cabin. I'd called ahead to make sure the locksmith would be there at 9. When I arrived, Vanessa's car was still parked in the driveway. Through the windows, I could see her kids watching television. Craig was on the deck drinking coffee. I knocked on the door. Vanessa opened it, looking surprised. "Oh, hey, I thought you went home." "I did," I said calmly. "Now I'm back. We're actually still using the place," she said, as if that explained everything. "We thought we'd stay through Monday since the kids don't have school." "That's not going to work," I said. She laughed. "Erica, come on, don't be like this. We're family. And this is my property," I said. "I need you to pack up and leave. Now." Her smile faded. "Are you serious?" "Completely." Craig appeared behind her, still holding his coffee mug. "What's going on?" "She wants us to leave," Vanessa said, her voice taking on a familiar, whiny tone. "Can you believe this?" Craig looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "We drove all the way up here. The kids are having fun. What's the big deal?" "The big deal," I said slowly, "is that you're here without my permission. I asked you to leave on Friday and you didn't. So I'm asking again. Please pack your things and go." Vanessa crossed her arms. "You're being ridiculous. Mom's going to hear about this." "I'm sure she will," I said. "But right now I need you to leave." At that moment, the locksmith's truck pulled into the driveway. A man in his 50s stepped out carrying a toolbox. He nodded at me. "Morning, you the owner?" "Yes," I said. "Thank you for coming." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You called a locksmith. Are you kidding me?" "I told you I needed you to leave," I said. "I'm changing the locks." Craig's face turned red. "This is insane. You're going to lock out your own sister. I'm going to protect my property," I said. "Which is my right." The locksmith looked uncomfortable. "Should I, come back later?" "No," I said firmly. "Please go ahead and start. They'll be leaving soon." Vanessa looked at me like I'd betrayed her. Like I was the villain in this story, but I didn't care. I was done being the one who bent, who compromised, who gave up what I needed to keep everyone else happy. This was my line. And I wasn't crossing it. It took them 45 minutes to pack. Vanessa slammed drawers and muttered under her breath, while Craig loaded their car with exaggerated movements, making sure I saw how put out he was. The kids seemed confused, asking why they had to leave when they were having fun. Vanessa told them Aunt Erica was being mean. I stood on the porch and watched. My arms crossed. I didn't help. I didn't apologize. I just waited. When they were finally ready to go, Vanessa turned to me one last time. Her face was blotchy from crying. Real or performed, I couldn't tell. "I can't believe you're doing this. We're your family. You didn't ask permission," I said quietly. "You just took what you wanted." "Because I didn't think I had to ask," she snapped. "Normal people share with their families. Normal people don't act like this. Normal people respect boundaries," I said. Craig stepped between us. "Let's just go. She's not worth it." They got in their car and drove off. leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. I watched until they disappeared down the mountain road. The locksmith finished his work in another hour. He handed me 2 new keys and gave me a sympathetic look. "Family trouble? Something like that," I said. "Well, these locks are solid. No one's getting in without your permission now." I thanked him and paid his fee. When he left, I stood in my cabin. Finally, truly mine again, and felt a wave of exhaustion hit me. I'd won this battle, but I knew the war was just beginning. My phone rang. My mother, I answered. "Hello? Erica, what on earth is going on? Vanessa just called me in tears. She said you kicked her and the kids out of the cabin." "I didn't kick them out," I said calmly. "I asked them to leave after they showed up without permission." "Without permission? She's your sister. Since when does she need permission?" "Since it's my property and I have a right to decide who uses it." My mother's voice rose. "You sound like a lawyer, not a daughter. This is family. We share things in this family." "No, Mom," I said. "You expect me to share things, but when I say no, that's somehow wrong. You're being selfish," she said. "Vanessa needed a break. She has 2 kids to take care of. You're single and you have all the time in the world. Why couldn't you just let them stay?" I closed my eyes and took a breath. This was the script I'd heard my entire life. Vanessa needed things. Vanessa deserved things, and I was supposed to step aside and make room. "Because I needed a break too," I said. "And this is my cabin. I worked for it. I paid for it. And I have the right to say no." "Your father and I are very disappointed in you," my mother said, her voice cold. "We raised you to be kinder than this. You raised me to put everyone else first," I said. "But that's not kindness. That's just being a doormat," she gasped. "How dare you speak to me like that?" "I'm not trying to be disrespectful," I said. "I'm just trying to set boundaries. And if that makes me selfish, then I guess I'm selfish." She hung up. I sat down on my couch and stared at the wall. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me wondered if I was overreacting. But another part of me, a stronger part, knew I was right. For the rest of Monday, I ignored the calls and texts from my family. I went for a hike, made myself dinner, and sat on my deck as the sun set behind the mountains. The silence was perfect. The air was cool, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Vanessa wasn't the type to let things go. She'd always been the one who got her way, who played the victim when things didn't work out, who manipulated our parents into taking her side. And now I'd embarrassed her. I'd made her look bad in front of her husband and kids. She wouldn't forgive that. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I scrolled through old messages until I found the one I was looking for, a conversation I'd had with Vanessa 6 months ago. She'd asked to borrow $5,000 for a down payment on a new car. I'd said no. She'd gotten angry and accused me of being stingy. I'd explained that I was saving for the cabin and couldn't afford it. She'd responded, "You always put yourself first." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I opened a new note on my phone and started writing down everything I could remember. Every time Vanessa had borrowed money and never paid it back. Every time she'd guilt-tripped me into babysitting when I had plans. Every time she'd taken something of mine without asking and acted like I was the problem when I objected. The list was long. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed to document everything. Because if this escalated, and I had a feeling it would, I wanted to be prepared. Tuesday morning, I drove back to Boulder and went to work. My coworker, a woman named Jenna, asked how my weekend was. I gave her a vague answer. She didn't push, but as I sat at my desk, staring at spreadsheets and project timelines, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Vanessa had crossed a line. My family had dismissed my feelings, and I was done pretending it didn't matter. I opened my laptop and started searching for property lawyers in Colorado. I didn't know if I'd need one, but I wanted to be ready, because something told me this was only the beginning. The rest of Tuesday passed in a blur. I went through the motions at work, attended meetings, responded to emails, reviewed design mock-ups, but my mind kept drifting back to the cabin. By the time I got home that evening, I had 17 missed calls. 12 from my mother, 3 from Vanessa, and 2 from my father. I made myself dinner, poured a glass of wine, and finally listened to the voicemails. My mother's messages began stern and disappointed, then slowly turned worried and begging. "Erica, please call me back. We need to discuss this. Your sister is really upset. The kids are asking why you don't love them anymore. Please just call me." Vanessa's messages were different. The first one was furious. "I can't believe you changed the locks. That's so childish. You're acting like a child." The second one was manipulative. "I guess I know where I stand with you now, after everything I've done for you." The third one was silent except for the sound of her crying. My father's messages were short. "Your mother is very upset. Call her." And then, hours later, "Erica, this has gone too far. You need to apologize to your sister." I deleted them all. Wednesday morning, I woke up to a text from Vanessa. "Mom had to take blood pressure medication because of the stress you caused. I hope you're happy." I put my phone down and got ready for work. I wasn't going to respond. I wasn't going to defend myself. I'd done nothing wrong, and I refused to be manipulated into feeling guilty. But as the day went on, the texts kept coming. Vanessa, my mother. Even my Aunt Patricia, who I hadn't spoken to in 2 years, sent me a message saying she was disappointed in me, and that family was supposed to forgive each other. Forgive each other for what? I hadn't done anything that required forgiveness. I'd simply enforced a boundary. By Thursday, I was exhausted. The constant flood of messages and calls was wearing me down. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should have just let them stay. Maybe I was being selfish. Then, on Thursday afternoon, something happened that changed everything. I received an email from Beverly, my property manager. The subject line read, "Incident Report. Your property." My stomach dropped as I opened it. The email explained that a neighbor had reported seeing people at my cabin on Wednesday evening. Beverly had driven up to check on it and found that someone had broken a window on the back door and entered the property. Nothing appeared to be stolen, but there was evidence that someone had been inside. Muddy footprints, dishes left in the sink, and the thermostat turned up. Beverly had called the sheriff's office. They documented the break-in and recommended I file a formal report. She'd also had the window repaired and sent me the bill. I stared at the email, my hands shaking. Someone had broken into my cabin, and I had a pretty good idea who it was. I immediately called Beverly. She answered on the second ring. "I just got your email," I said. "Do you know who did this?" "The sheriff took some photos," she said, "but there were no fingerprints or clear evidence. Whoever did it was careful." "Was there a car in the driveway?" I asked. "The neighbor said they saw a dark SUV, but they didn't get a plate number." "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" I hesitated. If I accused Vanessa without proof, I'd look paranoid. But if I didn't say anything, she might do it again. "I have a suspicion," I said carefully, "but I can't prove it yet." "Well, I'd recommend installing security cameras," Beverly said. "And if you think someone specific might be targeting your property, you should let the sheriff know." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat at my desk, staring at the wall, feeling a rage I'd never experienced before. Vanessa had broken into my cabin. I was sure of it. She'd been angry about being kicked out, angry about the locks being changed, and she decided to prove a point. She'd probably convinced Craig to drive up there in the middle of the week, break the window, and use the place anyway. It was deliberate, it was vindictive, and it was illegal. I picked up my phone and called the sheriff's office in Breckenridge. A deputy answered, and I explained that I was the owner of the cabin and that I wanted to file a formal report about the break-in. He took down my information and said someone would follow up with me. Then I did something I should have done days ago. I called a property lawyer. His name was Keith, and he specialized in real estate disputes. I explained the situation. The spare key, the unauthorized use, the break-in. He listened carefully and then asked a few questions. "Do you have any proof that your sister was the one who broke in?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "But I'm going to get it." "Good," he said. "In the meantime, I'd recommend documenting everything. Save all the texts and voicemails, take photos of the damage, and install security cameras as soon as possible." "What are my legal options?" I asked. "If you can prove she broke in, you can pursue criminal charges for trespassing and property damage," he said. "You can also send her a cease and desist letter, which would make it clear that any further unauthorized access will result in legal action." "And if she ignores it?" I asked. "Then you escalate. Restraining order, lawsuit, whatever it takes. But let's start with the cease and desist and see how she responds." I thanked him and hung up, feeling a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't powerless. I had options, and I was going to use them. That evening, I drove to a home security store and bought 2 outdoor cameras with motion detection and night vision. The sales associate helped me pick a system that could be monitored from my phone. I paid extra for expedited shipping to the cabin. Then I went home and started organizing my evidence. I took screenshots of every text message. I saved every voicemail. I printed out the email from Beverly and the invoice for the window repair. By the time I went to bed, I had a folder an inch thick. Vanessa thought she could intimidate me. She thought I'd back down, apologize, and let her do whatever she wanted. She was wrong. And by the time I was done, she was going to regret ever stepping foot in my cabin. Friday morning, I took the day off work and drove up to the cabin. The security cameras had arrived, and I needed to install them myself. I wasn't going to wait for a professional or risk Vanessa showing up while someone else was there. The drive felt longer than usual. My mind raced with possibilities. What if Vanessa came back while I was there? What if she'd already been back and done more damage? What if she brought Craig and they confronted me? I kept my phone on the passenger seat, ready to call the sheriff if needed. When I pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. The cabin was quiet, the windows intact. I unlocked the door using my new key and stepped inside. The air smelled stale, like someone had turned up the heat and left it running for hours. I walked through each room, checking for signs of disturbance. In the kitchen, I found dishes in the sink. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses. They hadn't even bothered to clean up after themselves. I took photos with my phone. Then I installed the security cameras, one facing the driveway and one facing the back door. The setup was easier than I expected. Within an hour, I had both cameras connected to my phone, and I could see live footage from wherever I was. I felt a small sense of victory. If Vanessa came back, I'd have proof. As I was finishing up, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Your father and I are coming to see you this weekend. We need to talk about this situation with your sister." I stared at the message. They were coming to Boulder, to my apartment, to corner me and force me to reconcile with Vanessa. I texted back, "I'm not available this weekend." Her response was immediate, "We're your parents." "Make time, I don't think that's a good idea right now." I typed, "Erica, enough. We're arriving Saturday afternoon, be home." I felt my chest tight. They weren't asking, they were demanding. And if I refused, I'd be the disrespectful daughter who turned her back on her family. But I was done playing by their rules. If you show up at my apartment uninvited, I won't answer the door. I texted, "I've set a boundary with Vanessa. And I'm setting one with you too. I need space." I waited for her response. It took 5 minutes. "You're breaking your father's heart." I didn't reply. Instead, I spent the next hour sitting on my deck, looking out at the mountains, trying to calm the anxiety building in my chest. I'd never stood up to my parents like this. I'd never refused to see them, and part of me felt like a terrible person for doing it. But another part of me knew it was necessary. Saturday came, and I stayed in my apartment. I turned off my phone and spent the day reading, cleaning, and trying not to think about whether my parents had actually driven to Boulder. Around 5 in the afternoon, I turned my phone back on. 8 missed calls, 12 text messages. The first few texts were from my mother saying they were outside my building and I needed to come down. Then the messages shifted to anger. "I can't believe you're doing this. Your father is devastated. This is the last straw, Erica." Then, finally, a message from my father. "We drove 3 hours to see you and you won't even open the door. I don't know who you've become, but this isn't the daughter we raised." I set my phone down and felt tears prick my eyes. Not because I regretted my decision, but because it hurt to realize how little they understood me. They thought I was the problem. They thought I'd changed. But the truth was I'd just stopped pretending. Sunday passed quietly. I ignored the calls and messages. I went for a run, cooked a nice meal, and Sunday passed quietly. I ignored the calls and messages. I went for a run, cooked a nice meal, and sat on my balcony watching the city lights flicker on. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt steady. The cabin cameras were working perfectly, and the cease and desist letter from Keith was ready to send on Monday. I was done reacting. Now I was acting. Monday morning brought a new wave of chaos. I opened my phone to a string of texts from Vanessa. "You win, Erica. I hope your precious cabin keeps you warm at night since no one else will." Then another, "By the way, Mom's in the hospital. Chest pains, thanks to you." My stomach twisted, but I didn't reply. I'd been through this cycle too many times. Instead, I forwarded the messages to my lawyer and headed to work. At lunch, Beverly called. Erica, the cameras caught something last night. My heart raced. What happened? Two people showed up around 11 p.m. They tried the new locks, then went around back. The motion lights and cameras scared them off, but we have clear footage. A man and a woman. The sheriff wants to talk to you. Finally, proof. I left work early and drove straight to the sheriff's office in Breckenridge. The deputy played the video. Even with hoods and poor lighting, I recognized Vanessa's posture and Craig's broad shoulders. They had tools with them. They had tried to break in again. "That's my sister and her husband," I said quietly. The deputy nodded. "We'll bring them in for questioning." By evening, the story exploded in my family group chat. Vanessa posted that I was destroying the family and sending police after her for visiting a family cabin. Most relatives sided with her instantly. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I sent the cease and desist letter that night, along with copies of the police report and camera footage attached. Keith advised me to stay silent publicly and let the legal process work. 2 days later, Vanessa called from an unknown number, crying, "Erica, please drop this. Craig lost his job last month. We were stressed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. We just needed a place to get away." For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the muddy footprints, the broken window, the years of taking without asking. "You broke into my property, Vanessa, twice. That's not stress, that's a crime." She screamed at me, called me heartless, then hung up. The following week was brutal. My mother was discharged from the hospital and immediately started a campaign against me. Family members unfollowed me. Old friends from high school texted, asking what was wrong with me. I felt isolated but strangely free. Then came the twist I never saw coming. Keith called me on Friday afternoon. "Erica, the sheriff's office just updated me. They found fingerprints inside the cabin from the first break-in. Some belonged to Craig, but others belonged to your father." I froze. "My father?" "Yes, he was there too. They have him on the security footage from the back camera, standing watch while Craig broke the window. He never went inside, but he was involved." Everything clicked into place. The way my parents had defended Vanessa so aggressively, the spare key, the pressure. My father had known all along. He had helped them. I sat down hard on my couch, staring at the mountains through my window. The same mountains I had worked so hard to enjoy in peace. That evening, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. My mother opened the door, surprised. My father was in the living room, watching TV. I didn't yell. I simply played the video on my phone and set it on the coffee table. Both of them went pale. "Dad," I said calmly, "you helped them break into my cabin. After everything you taught me about honesty." My mother started crying. My father couldn't look at me. "We thought you'd come around," he muttered. "Vanessa needed help. You're always so independent." I nodded slowly. "And that independence is exactly why I'm done." I left their house without another word. No shouting, no dramatic exit, just quiet finality. The next month was hard but healing. Vanessa and Craig were charged with trespassing and property damage. My father received a warning. I changed my number and took a week off to stay at the cabin. This time, no one bothered me. I sat on the deck in the jacuzzi, the same one Craig had lounged in, watching the stars above the pines. The silence I had fought so hard for finally felt earned. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the peace you choose to protect. And for the first time in my life, I chose me without guilt. I raised my glass of wine to the dark mountains and smiled. This cabin wasn't just mine anymore. It was my beginning. Like, subscribe, and smash that bell before it smashes you. Stay with Reddit Tales Times for chilling twists, haunting tales, and daily doses of the disturbing. You've been warned.